Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Deepen Your Flute Journey. 10 weeks of dynamic tools to play, compose, and improvise songs for sound healing. I'm Lisa Bonise, and I'm really looking forward to this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Christine Stevens and address questions about her upcoming 10-week course. Again, it's called Deepen Your Flute Journey, and it begins Tuesday, October 27th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course even if you can't attend live sessions. I know a lot of people are concerned about that, but it's not a problem. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Christine Stevens is the founder of Upbeat Drum Circles, author of Music Medicine and the Healing Drum Learning Program, and a musical ambassador of peace. Her Shift Network course, Awaken Your Rhythm, has helped hundreds of people from over 35 countries bring drumming into their lives for spirituality and health. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions for Christine. But first, I want to welcome Christine because she's going to begin our time together by leading us in a flute meditation. Welcome, Christine. It is always lovely to spend time with you.
Thank you, Lisa and Shift Network. Let's all just take a breath wherever you're tuning in from. I want to begin by honoring my teachers. I feel that my teachers have been instruments, trees, rivers, humans. I've had a great lineage of Lakota and Dene teachers. I want to honor Zinkala Oyate Wakan, Ocheti Wakan, Uncle Manny, Eagle Elk, Council Pipe Sandoval, and all my experiences playing around the world in war zones and in disaster areas as a musical ambassador of peace. And with that, let's begin with a practice allowing sound to teach us about how to live right now in these challenging times. Why are we drawn to the sound of the Native American flute? There's so much interest in this flute right now worldwide. It's the cedar that's made this flute, the wood, the earth, the connection to nature, the simplicity of a 5-note scale, the ancientness of a flute, which is one of the earliest instruments known to humanity. So many of us are living our lives like moving through the scales of music, kind of by rote. You know, I get up, I do this, I do that. We call this the scale. How do we convert a scale or notes to melodies is something I'm teaching. And I thought I would demonstrate it for you to receive the beauty of pausing on a note in life. I've been reflecting on this in my life. You know, I get up, I have this taskmaster voice. Hurry, do this, do that, do this. But what if we pause and sit on a note? Listen to how this changes the melody of our lives. It's a great metaphor and a great chance for you to just anchor in, take a deep breath, and receive the transformation from the notes to the melody, to the anchoring and pausing. And here's pausing on any note and how it changes the sound. For music to be healing, it has a purpose: to quiet the mind, to center the heart, to return to a place that is not disturbed by the politics and the news and all that is frenetic and tense and disharmonious right now. There is something powerful about just listening with your heart, as if your heart has ears, and absorbing. I'll play a little more as I continue to move up and down the scale, simply pausing for a long note now and then, and how much beauty it creates. These are simple principles, and it's even more powerful when you can play the flute yourself, which all of us can learn, because no one knows the music I need as much as my soul, as much as your soul. When you play that in the day, in the morning, to greet the day, to have a healing moment before and after a meditation, very powerful. We know what we need, and it's wonderful to access that sonic intuition with you today. So taking a breath. Blessings to everyone who's tuning in and receiving a moment. It really takes about 4 minutes to just shift into that heart center and feel what the flute brings out in us.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine, for playing us in. That was just gorgeous. So now we have the rest of our time together to dive into our viewers' questions as we prepare for Christine's upcoming course. Again, it's called Deepen Your Flute Journey. Begins Tuesday, October 27th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 10-week course, you can visit fluteassoundmedicine.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get into some questions. If you have a question for Christine, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to read it aloud. And in the meantime, the very first question, the most common question people are already asking, first, where did you get the flute that you're playing right now?
This flute is from a company called High Spirits. They're made in America. They're based in Patagonia, Arizona. And what I like about this flute is it is a little bit different. It's called the earth tone. This is an A432. It's a flute in the key of A, but it's tuned to a different, slightly different frequency, which I can talk more about. And it's considered, you know, the 432 versus 440. There's two frequencies that are being honored today in sound healing. 440, the standard tuning, and 432, which is probably predates that tuning, often considered to be more in tune with the earth, less adjusted by, I would say, European colonization of instruments. The other flute that I want to play for people today is also from High Spirits, and it's a double flute, just to blow your mind, as if it's not enough to learn one flute, right? But we are in this course going to explore the concept of a double flute. because once you can finger one flute, you can add a wider embouchure and play two flutes at once. It'll sound like this.
That is so cool. But this actually beautifully leads to the next most frequently asked question is, what kind of flute should people who are joining the course have? Let's say they're beginners, they've never done more than playing a recorder in elementary school. How much should they invest? Let's talk about beginners in the course.
Sure. I think there's nothing more spectacular than the moment you buy yourself an instrument. I received my first Native American flute, purchased it at a powwow in Colorado. Before I knew this was going to be my journey, I saw immediately, just shopping in the booth, how people were responding to the playing of the flute. I could feel like I studied saxophone in high school and in college, and I played in the marching band and all that, and I played jazz. So I had some, chops for how to do an air instrument, breath instrument. This instrument is really special. It's a solo instrument. You don't need to be in the band. You can play this anywhere, everywhere. It's portable, it's durable. It's a spectacular meditation tool. So the answer to that is I like to teach in the key of A. I have two flutes, A440, A432. I recommend that because many instruments are tuned to the key of C major. And the A minor flute is in the relative minor. Don't worry, this is not a music class. Simply what that means is they sound good together. The other flute, if you have a flute, I have been finding that many of us were gifted a flute, we bought a flute, we never learned how to play it, it was sitting on the shelf with dust for years. That's okay. Any key works because I play the drum during the class and people can use what I teach on their instrument. The universal thing is these 6, or in this case, 5 holes. I have the third hole covered with a leather strap to remind myself to keep my finger down on that hole to access the 5-note scale where there's no wrong notes, which I think is a good way to live life. If we could live life more often like there's no mistakes, that it's all good. It's a good consciousness this flute teaches us. So the consistent thing is even the recorder that you have from childhood or wherever you have that recorder, it had the same 6 spacing of these same holes. So we're still in the same concept of the fingerings for the flutes. So literally any flute works. In our last course, we had people playing flutes from Bali and Aztec flutes. We had people playing flutes from Japan. I mean, it was just interesting. The flute and the drum are very universal in human cultures. Many music cultures have a unique drum and a flute combination. I feel that's the earth and the sky speaking together in harmony and centering us like a tree on the earth.
All right. Thank you for that one. I'm sure you've relieved a lot of people's minds. We've got a question here from Scott who says, can you share a little bit about how the flute touches us within and how it strengthens our meditation?
Oh, man. Yes, Scott. Thank you for that question. My first performing of the flute publicly was at the Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. And I was the meditation musician. And I would play the flute for about 7 minutes, and people would sit in silence, and then I would close the meditation for 7 minutes. So my playing bookended the meditation practice. What is it about the flute that brings me as the player into meditation is the breath. I mean, I'm elongating each exhale. I'm breathing deeply into my diaphragm and my lungs. So both sources of breath and breath support are being activated. I can't really think when I'm playing the flute. If I think about my to-do list or, this or that, the mind has its way. And we're going to show you the science of that during the course. I mean, that's the default network of our brain. But when we're playing the flute, we shift into the experiencing network of the brain. We're out of the past and the future, and we're in the moment. That is so valuable. That is a goal, right? To be here now, Ram Dass said. So that's how it works for meditation. As a player, I can say the breath work, the mind work, and then the practice for me is after I play, I can sit really deeply. It just puts me in that space that I want to have trouble, transitioning from life into that meditation consciousness. And then I can play my flute at the end of that. This is a science that's passed down from many cultures, from India. Paramahansa Yogananda in the Self-Realization Fellowship does the same thing. They chant, get quiet, sit in quietness, stillness, and then quietly come back into chant. The other part you asked is, why does it touch our hearts? I have a theory that melody is the medicine for the heart, just as rhythm is the medicine for the body. I mean, if I played a beat on my drum, it would be hard for you to hold still. Most of us, in any rhythm case, right? Your music plays, we're not even thinking and our foot is tapping. When it comes to the flute, this is the heart. When it comes to rhythm and the drum, it's the body. I believe that silence is the medicine for the mind and harmony is the medicine for the soul. And that is music medicine, the medicine wheel of music. So I believe that melodies touch our hearts. Just think about it. Don't we hold a song in our hearts? We talk about our heartstrings, right? I have also known from playing in really challenging places with refugees in war zones and in fire recovery areas, in disaster areas. When I start to play the flute, people get quiet, tears come, it reaches emotions. And that's a good thing. It can be evocative of our emotions. And I always say your tears are welcome. My tears are welcome. Yesterday, I was being interviewed on Zoom for a magazine, and the woman interviewing me plays flute, and she played flute for me before we began the interview. And I felt tears. So I don't have to know what they are. I don't want to try to label it. Who knows? My father died recently. Maybe there's that going on. Maybe it was beauty tears. Being touched in the heart can be pain is being brought up. It can be beauty is cracking me open, right? So I want to close my answer to you by playing the flute in a meditative way. That's a different style. We talk about different styles in our course. The long tone style, the extended notes and the extended spaces, that's a meditative style. So I want to play to your heart, tuning in. I can answer better on the flute than in my words. So that was 2 forms of communication to you.
All right, beautiful. Well done. Thank you. And that leads actually perfectly into this next question. Jillian says, the sound of the flute is so beautiful, but I do find it rather mournful. Will we also be playing and listening to some light and bright sounds too?
Again, I think I should answer on the flute. The answer is that the tuning, the tonality of the flute is in what we call in music a minor key, what we call in the flute class a lunar key. I like to use the words lunar and solar instead of minor, as if, minor, not as big, and major. So those are Western colonialized European language, classical language, but the flute is about nature. And so I like to say the lunar, and yes, there is solar. How do we access that? I will answer in my flute to you. Two things changed. Moved quicker through the notes. I started at the second note on the flute, the 5th hole, 5 holes down, and it changed to solar. One thing that I really love about the flute is that it's totally tantric. It holds the mourning and the joy. And I mentioned that I was carrying my flute as my father was just dying recently on hospice. I created a grief flute. I wrote his name on the flute. I played it every day as a practice. Some days it was mourning, but some days, I'm just telling you from my direct experience, it was like this wealth of gratitude came through me. And there were no words for how deep my gratitude. So that flute became the voice of my emotions. And the beautiful end of that story is I did get to play my flute to my father before he passed. And I feel that anything that was unsaid between us, I said on the flute. And I played it in quiet ways and I played it in upbeat ways. It's just amazing to me. I've been playing this for over 20 years and it's 5 notes. But it's so infinite, the possibilities. It's kind of like a life lesson that less creates more, I think, than having less to think about in my mind. Oh, what about that, sharp note or flat note? No, I don't have to think about any of that. In fact, I don't have to think at all. So that's how I answer that. It depends on the style of the player. Is it mourning or is it happy? Is it upbeat? Is it reflective? There's such a depth of feeling in between those, right? The point is permission. Whatever it is that you want to play and feel, you create. Thank you for your question.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story about your father. I'd like to go back to some questions from more beginners because there are a lot of people who are so fascinated with your work, but I think they're feeling a little bit intimidated. Like there's one question from Katie who says, I'm a beginner and I find it hard to follow by watching. How will you be teaching the fingering?
I'm so glad for this question, Katie. I've been thinking lately, people have learning styles. We all know that. There's kinesthetic, visual, auditory, and auditory digital learning styles. Now, I'm interested in how we learn music. And I have been finding that I'm a visual learner, but I'm an auditory music learner. So some people are visual music learners. They want to watch my fingers on the holes. So the great thing is, this course, we have a second camera shoot coming in for the course so that there'll be a close-up shot of the fingers, which I'm really excited about, that we're working with Shift to create an actual 2-camera live courses, modules. And if that's what helps you, that's great. There is a technique of notation that was originated by Carlos Nakai. We will be distributing the music, sheet music, which is not reading music. The great thing is it's a picture of a flute, and it's like 6 holes, and then each hole is darkened that your fingers are down on. So it's easier to understand. Then there's auditory learners. I remember teaching someone who, with their eyes closed, did better than watching me. When you watch someone play, what's happening in your brain, because I love the science of all of this, is that the mirror neurons are getting lit up. So when you watch me play, 30%, according to science, of your brain is playing the flute right now. This is why we have empathy. Somebody falls on the street, we tear up, we're worried for them. Our voice changes. Are you okay? Because we feel empathy. So you're experiencing flute empathy, or you might call it sympathetic frequency or sympathetic vibration. And I've been with teachers in world countries, in Iraq I'm thinking of most recently, where I learned to play a drum pattern by looking into the eyes of the teacher. I never even stared down at his fingers. There was a transmission. So just want to permission you that there's so many ways to learn music, and there's just as much individuality as there is in any other learning styles. Our job is to discover and offer it to you in all the languages: auditory, digital, auditory, kinesthetic, and visual. Some people, they just need to put their fingers and do the scale over and over, and they feel the songs that we teach. Some people, they hear it, and they can hear, oh, I'm wrong, oh, I'm right. Some people, they want to watch my hands, or they want to look at the sheet music. So it's cool because all learning styles are welcome. I also want to say a word about this concept of beginners. First of all, we know from research that we are all musical. Now, I studied this in grad school in the research lab of Dr. Michael Taud in Colorado State University, getting my master's in music therapy. I tested people's rhythmic accuracy, musicians and non-musicians. There was no difference. I was stunned. It turns out we're wired for rhythm. We're wired for music. We all talk. I'm talking to you now with music. It's called prosodic language. If I just talked monotone, it would be a really boring conversation right now, but luckily there's music to the way we talk. So what I love about our teaching style in this course, which we just completed 7 sessions with people and really saw the results, is we hold 2 things important: technique and the spiritual practice of it, or the healing practice. The more technique we rise up, the more applications we can explore with healing or nature connection or spiritual practice or mindfulness and meditation. But we have to get the basic mechanics. Where do I put my fingers on the flute? How do I play the different notes? So I like to cover both, like a cross current of streams coming together. And that's the place we want to come from. Having the technique, but having the courage to improvise from our heart. And I will answer your question now on the double flute. Lisa, we're creating a system today where everybody's question gets answered with words and music. This is the first time. We welcome beginners. We think of you as new players, not beginners. Nobody is really ever beginning music lessons. We've all been listening to rhythm tracks before we were born of our mother's heartbeat. I just want to be reminding you that we all have a musical intuition. And I really know that, having been a music therapist for many years and being surprised very often by the musicality that came through children with developmental disabilities or autism. I mean, Alzheimer's. I remember a woman in an Alzheimer's center where I worked started singing this beautiful song. I said, "Where'd you learn that?" She said, "I don't know. I just came through me." So that's my answer. Question, I'm going to grab some water, Lisa.
Absolutely, no problem. And I want to let everybody know, if you're just joining us, we're here with Christine Stevens, learning about her upcoming course. It's called Deepen Your Flute Journey, and it begins Tuesday, October 27th. And you can log on to fluteassoundmedicine.com for all the details and to register. So I'm not sure if Christine is back yet. Rob, share. There she is. Beautiful. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. So let's go back to you. You were talking briefly about the 440 and 432 hertz. People are very interested in that. So first of all, can you dive a little deeper? And then there's a question here from Karen who wants to know, how can I find out what the flute that I already own, what frequency it is?
Karen, I have a YouTube video. If you just Google how to know what key my flute is, there's a tutorial on a video from me. There's a very affordable app that you can put on any smart device and play your instrument into that device, and it will tell you not only what note it is, but what sense it is, C-E-N-T-S. So we talk about pitch. We are on pitch, or we are sharp or flat. Sharp being a little higher, a few cents higher. Flat being a few cents under. And I don't know who came up with that, because it's not that music is a currency. It's not a financial metaphor, flats or sharps, or how much money and how much cents. But the concept of it's a little higher or a little lower, but yet not a full note yet. Right? So it's a little under the pitch. It's a little above the pitch. You'll see that on the app. I think it's called Clear Tone on the Apple iOS. But you can just Google pitch or note app. That's how you will find out what key and what sense your flute is in. So let's just take a breath and dive into this interesting concept of 440 flutes and 432 flutes. Okay, so what happens is in our course, which I really want to make sure I really say hello and please come join the course. I just think there's nothing more wonderful than learning to play an instrument. And I think this is an instrument that everyone can play, really. Someone in our course last time posted a video of a 2-year-old infant playing the flute. I was like, there you go. It's a permissioning flute. It sounds good quite immediately. Once you get through a few squeaks and you figure out how to put your fingers in the holes and cover the holes and tighten your mouth on the flute, you're kind of like smiling on the flute. You can really make progress quickly. So there's 2 primary tonalities that we're talking about here, just intonation and perfect intonation. And so we have this idea that it's slightly pitch corrected to be 440, although it's the standard pitch. It's a funny thing. I listened to my cell phone ring the other day and I was testing it. Sure enough, it's a 440 instrument. It's become standardized. When you listen to pop music, when you listen to most music, it's an A440, meaning, okay, that's the tonality of the hertz, the frequency. However, the flutes were never made to a specific key. That whole key thing came way after flutes. I think the earliest flute is dated back 40,000 BC. So, it carved out of a bird bone. So we're talking about a very ancient lineage here. So when you look at this, you realize, oh, so people didn't really tune the flutes. So what was that frequency? Where does the note A line up before it was adapted to interact with guitars and pianos and, saxophones and clarinets and trumpets and orchestral instruments? Because a lot of sound healing taps into ancient lineages, right? So what was that tonality? A432. Most people can't really even perceive the difference, but it is 8 cents difference, right? 432 to 440. So what we just did is, as a bonus to this course, when you enroll, you receive 6 tracks that are play along that I've recorded in a professional studio at A440. And I think for the first time, we created sound healing play along tracks in A432. So whatever flute you want to try will be fine. I carry both. I've been playing for you the earth tone 432. I have it with me in this moment because I'm going to be outside today playing in Zion National Park. And this resonates to me with earth practices. Now, again, it's not really perceptible. The challenge with this flute is it's harder for me to play with others. So the reality is the A440 flute is easier for me to play with a guitar player or a piano player or a drummer whose drum is tuned to 440. So it is going to be easier to interact, or the kalimba, which I love, or the handpan. Some of the instruments I'll be highlighting in the course. It is a standalone instrument. You don't have to play it with anything else, but it's fun to play with a drum or a guitar or, piano. So it gives us more opportunity to interact. So the short answer is A440 is more standard. It's going to give you more opportunity to connect to other instruments, to play with others. A432 will be slightly lower sounding in pitch. It might sound bad when you play with another person whose instrument cannot be adjusted, and neither can these. They're tuned to themselves. But it does have a history of being a more resonant pitch from the beginnings of the earth. So it is said.
All right. Thank you so much for explaining that. As I mentioned, a lot of people are asking, so it's very helpful. Now, here's another topic entirely. People are asking about their hands. What if I've got tiny hands and it's hard to reach all those holes? What if I've got arthritic fingers? Let's talk about hands a little bit.
Good. Well, the instruments that I use are within the range of A and G. I'm not able personally to reach down to like a deep, super low flute where that the holes become wider. There's a technique in flute playing called the Cradle Technique. I don't just put my fingers straight on here, I cradle in. I curve my hands inward. My thumbs are on the back side, my 2 thumbs, they are supporting the flute, which doesn't weigh much at all, which is great. And I can tell you that because I played saxophone and it weighs a lot more. What I find interesting about this hand position is that this is basically the mudra like this. The thumb is balancing the fingers. So Krishna was a flute player. There's a lot of mudras. There's a lot of connection of the spiritual lineage of the flute. What you want to do is always not hold too much tension in an instrument. When I see people playing like this, they're really tensing their hands and pushing hard, they're going to create a little bit of tension. So we loosen our hands, do a little warm up with our wrists. And I have actually heard from many students that this is really good for arthritis because this is less of pain on certain areas. Plus you're creating exercise, fine motor exercise. And it's sure a lot more fun than just sitting there and bouncing, pressing one of those little ball machines that you have to build some muscle strength in your fingers. It also builds individual movements that we're not always used to in our hands. So it has a lot of good effect for your fingers and your wrists. don't worry if you can avoid feeling that you can't reach the holes by getting a higher flute. The higher the pitch, the more close the fingers are going to be for you together. That is why I really recommend the A. I have taken it all over the world and taught it for like 25 years, and nobody's ever had trouble reaching these fingers. So that's why I like the key of A. It is something that most people with a normal hand reach can play. So that's the answer, is don't worry. It really has to do with the key of the flute, and it has to do with getting some comfort so that you learn to balance, which is a great practice, those thumbs and those fingers holding the flute together, and then you can get to where you can walk around the house and play it, or hike on a trail and play it, because it's so portable.
All right. Thank you for addressing that. I'm looking at the clock. We have time for a couple more questions, but before we take any more, I want to go ahead and give a few details about the course. Again, it's called Deepen Your Flute Journey, and this is going to be really a fun, life-changing 10-week journey with Christine under her expert guidance, where you'll feel the profound effects of flute playing and the warm connection of a virtual community as you learn scales, songs, and ornamenting techniques to find your own personal soul song and create healing experiences for yourself and others. And the 10-week course takes place on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, beginning Tuesday, October 27th. And if you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings, as I mentioned earlier, because you will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And I'd also like to remind everyone that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until November 10th in this case, to make sure that it's a good fit. We want you to be happy. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can connect with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives access to the 7-week introductory training, the one that came before this 10-week course. That's called The Flute as Sound Medicine, and you'll also receive the bonus collection that goes along with that. And you can complete this material at your leisure, but it's better to begin before the new sessions start, if at all possible. Also, of course, you'll receive the entire Deepen Your Flute Journey bonus collection. So first, you'll receive a 2-track audio compilation from Christine entitled The Medicine of Rhythm Play-Along Collection. And then you'll receive the 7-track audio compilation from Christine called Sound Healing Play-Along Collection. And you'll also receive an additional 30 minutes of live practice time prior to every class as a beginner review session. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Wednesday, October 21st, you'll receive this extra gift, and that is a video dialogue with Christine and Alex Sims called Drumming for Healing, Change Your Brain with Rhythm. So, Christine, before we get back into questions, I want you to talk about what you're looking forward to sharing in your brand new upcoming course.
Well, it really is great how you described it so well, Lisa. And those 7 modules, it's great to at least watch maybe the first couple of them to just get the basics of the flute dynamics and playing. But again, nobody's done anything like what we've done here at the Shift Network of bringing together the concepts of sound healing, the science, spiritual, mental practice, mindfulness, meditation, and nature, and really design a course that is about those goals. It is not that we're trying to become flute performers. It is that we want to be part of making music. We want to have a tool right now when the world is pretty crazy and stressful. We want to have a tool that we can just easily access. And the great thing about this, it's like a prescription. You don't have to refill it. Once you have it, there are some side effects, I could say. It can be blissful and peaceful. And the other fun thing that we haven't talked about is when you play the flute in resonant spaces, you get reverb. Sometimes I go in the bathroom and play, or in the shower, or I play in canyons. When you start to hear the reverb on a flute, it really harkens to its origins of being found in a cave. So what I'm looking forward to is having a better pacing to where we can take our time in this next course. I've really created an amazing bonus package. I mean, these play-along tracks are professionally produced and mastered. And if you wanted to play for sound healing, or, sometimes you don't know how to say condolences to someone who's lost a loved one, record yourself playing the flute on your voice memo and send them a text. I think we are stepping into, I felt it today with you, Lisa, we're really stepping into like music as our language. It is the universal language. And I believe our souls are hungry and thirsty, and they're not being fed by the way we're living. And so we want to really connect to this instrument. If it reached your heart today, if you got some goosebumps, that's a yes. And everything that you begin is challenging. I really understand that. I'm always pushing myself to learn new things. So I understand that there's a moment of frustration. Well, why isn't this working? And that is the beginner's journey, that we step into something new. And what's right along the other side of the curve is, oh, I'm glad I kept walking on the path. Here's the most beautiful view. So please consider joining us. It is a journey. And the flute can accompany your life journey.
All right, great. And I want to correct myself. I apologize. I said Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, and it's 1 p.m. Pacific. So I apologize for that, but at least it got corrected during this video session. So yes, 1 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, okay. I've got a question here. We talked at the beginning of our conversation about purchasing your own flute, and you gave an excellent answer, but people have joined since then and perhaps may have missed that. So let me ask Kathy's version of a similar version to that question. How do I buy a flute aligned with my own energy? What's the best way to really choose your personal instrument?
The best way, thanks, great question, to choose is to listen to them played on YouTube. And also many websites like High Spirits, when you look at each flute, you can listen to it. You can click on a video and watch the person play it and listen to it. So I would say close your eyes, listen to each flute. And it really is a good question because everybody has a sound that is more resonant to them. Second part of that answer is try to stay into something that you can fit your hands on. I don't want you to say, oh, I really love the sound of that deep, C flute and I couldn't reach it when it came. So just be sensitive to that. And I almost always tell people to get something in the key of A minor because, again, it's a great beginning flute. And then once you progress, you can try other keys. But it is my go-to recommendation for people. The other factor to play into here is the type of wood that it's made out of. So I'm a fan of aromatic cedar or red cedar, which is the tradition of the Native American flute, was made always from cedar wood when it was available. You can get them in walnut. You can get them in birch. Someone in our class showed us, she found one in redwood from the redwood forest. So the wood can also change the feeling, the tonality. And then the last part of that question is, the A440 is going to be the more standardized sound, tonality. So there's a lot that goes into it, but at the same time, trusting our intuition. So I'm going to play for you A and G, just so you can hear the difference. A little bit higher one. Same song, key of G. So I'm playing both cedar flutes at this moment. I don't have a walnut one here with me, but you can consider listening to different ones. Consider what fits your hands. There's also something that I love for my lifestyle, which is called the Pocket Flute. And High Spirits makes this in a high key of A. And that way I can take it with me when I'm hiking. I can put it in my purse. I have been known to stand in airports and play my flute when people are angry and waiting for delayed flights. I play. So I like having it with me. So that's another factor, is having a small flute that you can just put in your backpack take on a hike and play in nature.
All right. Thank you for that. Here's a question from Anna Margarita, who says, I think that every harmony has an impact on our nervous system. What is it about the sound of the flute?
Well, I think that when it pertains specifically to the sound, it's pure. It's the solo, pure song. And I think it helps our nervous systems because it brings us in touch with nature. And I think right now on the planet, we are learning during COVID-19 to notice how we live on this planet. And we've reduced our carbon by 17% when we were all on lockdown. So the earth is singing a little bit better. The earth's lungs are getting stronger. There's less pollution right now. And we are also needing nature because it's a stressful time. There's a pandemic. It's global. My heart goes out to places where I have friends in the world where there's great pandemic spread right now. So thank gosh, I can just put my prayer, I'll actually show you how I do that, but I put my prayer for those friends of mine into the flute and I can feel like, yeah, I'm sending out a good frequency right now. So I think we need that nervous system response of like settling. Think about if you could describe right now the words of what comes to you from hearing this flute. It's settling, it's pure tone, it's woodsy, it's reflective. All those things are what we need. Calm, peaceful, And to explain that to you is also to recognize again the lineage. There are monks in the Zazen tradition in Japan who play shakuhachi flute. It is part of their monk training. Krishna held the flute. The Sufis are always talking, Hafiz is talking about the flute all the time. I know the sound of the reed flute longing for its voice, its breath. So we are connecting to something that has a spiritual tradition of anchoring us. The flute is the upper realms. It comes from the bird. It's the tree and the bird that built the holes in the wood in the lineage story. So we're really connecting to something that comes from heaven, the notes, the melodies to our hearts. And I'll just finish answering that with my playing. So, we always want to know what is it. Part of it is a mystery, and part of the magic is simplicity, nature, mindfulness.
All right. Thank you so much. I love this next question. This is from Geraldine, who says, I'm deaf, but I do feel music in my body. Would this course work for me? And can I learn to play? And before you answer that, let me just let everyone know, how can a deaf person take a course? We offer transcripts, word for word transcripts, and there's closed captioning available. So that right there answers that part of the question. But go ahead, Christine, and answer the rest of it if you could.
Well, being deaf doesn't change anything with your breathing. All it takes to play the flute is breath. And putting your fingers in the right place. And if you can read the transcript, you'll be fine. And there was someone who was deaf in my course in Japan, and he became one of the best players. He could feel the beat of the drum, and he visually could watch the beat of the drum, and he could play the flute. And he talked about, he didn't know what it sounded like, but the feeling tone, you might say. That's kind of an interesting thought. The hearing tone and the feeling tone. Let's make a note of that. Was significant, changing him. And also what I think is beautiful about this course is during this time of social isolation, we're going to belong to a global community through the Zoom calls, through the Facebook group. I think of it as a global flute circle. So that is a real benefit, and that has nothing to do with hearing, right? And I love your point, Lisa, that the transcripts are provided. And if you can see the fingers, you can play along. So why not? When this man came to my course in Japan, I was really amazed. I mean, he told me how he could just watch the foot go down. He could feel the rhythm. He could play the rhythm on the flute. And, without that auditory loop, you might experience even more freedom of feeling not so worried. Like a lot of us worry how we sound. You might experience even more liberation. Always important to think, how is that an advantage? And you can't play a wrong note on this flute. So, you have the relief of going, hey, of all the instruments I could learn, this one's perfect because you won't play a wrong note. Nobody does. So great question.
All right. Well, on that note, pun intended, we are about out of time here. So I want to say, first of all, Christine, I just love talking to you. This has been such a wonderful hour together. And I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your fantastic questions. Once again, Deepen Your Flute Journey begins Tuesday, October 27th, 1 p.m. And again, please visit fluteassoundmedicine.com to learn more and to register. So, Christine, before we let you go, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Yes, I do. And don't forget, what's great is you can take the course, and if you're not happy, we can refund you. So give yourself a try. Give flute playing a try. I feel it's calling our hearts. Just like, what is happening on the planet? Maybe we're becoming more heart opened and heartbroken and healing together. So here's my closing statement.
All right. Thank you again, Christine. It has been such a pleasure spending time with you today and to listening to your beautiful music. Thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lisa. May everyone's heart be connected and opened and touched with the beauty way of the flute. Aho.
All right. And once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.